Good morning. We have only a few days left in this retreat, so let us all continue making best use of this precious opportunity to practice together intensely for a week with a group, a sangha of like-minded people, being supported by each other. I want to thank all of you for being here, being a part of this, and of course for the organizers who have done so much so that this retreat could run smoothly. It's a wonderful opportunity. Let us continue making the best use of it. Zazen really is the dharma gate of ease and joy. If you become ill from it, you are not doing it with proper care. Done properly, your whole body naturally becomes light and at ease, spirit fresh, mind clear. The flavor or taste of dharma sustains, and you are calm, pure, and joyful. As mentioned, this quote from the Zazen manual shows us what Zazen really is. However, for many of us still struggling to practice, Zazen may not be the dharma gate of ease and joy. It may be very painful and tiring. And yet, it's true. Zazen, done properly, is the dharma gate, the entrance of ease and joy. If you haven't yet confirmed this, do not waste your time. Yesterday, or 2 days ago, 2 days ago in the previous Dharma talk, the second part, Mikhail the Jiki addressed the issue of expectation. He took up very concretely from his own experience what expectation is, the danger that lurks inside our expectations. How we can become, in a sense, entangled in, even strangled by our own expectations. This is one fine example of how the self can trip over its own feet. Of course, expectations are not the only problem that we encounter, but it's a good one to take up. It was a good example to use. Probably all of us can in some way relate to that matter of expectation. When all is said and done, in Zen practice, it's simply a matter of letting go of everything, not just expectations, hopes, but memories, dreams, delusions, even delusions about enlightenment, to let all of it go. Simply so that we can see what is really here in front of our face. Don't you see what is in front of your face? Well, you do and you don't. That's why you're here. That's why you struggle. once you really see immediately, directly, what is in front of your face, you don't go chasing after things again. You don't go running after things again. It's because you don't clearly see what is in front of your face, under your feet, that you endlessly seek after this and that. Thus, the mind, which includes everything, must come to its own end. Only then can we really see what is here, to really see things as they are, as it's spoken of in Buddhism. There's no magic. There's no trick to it. It's simply to stop running away, to stop escaping. From what? Some magical, mystical truth? No, from this. From this. You can't run away from it anyway. You just end up back here, but then you run away again. Once, stop and see where you are. Then you'll stop running away. You must let this mind come to a full and complete stop. Otherwise, you know you've done it 1,000, 10,000 times. You run around and around, a cat chasing its tail. And then you say, oh, the practice is so difficult. No, not practicing is what's difficult. Make it clear for yourself. I've already gone through over and over again the importance of getting the body together for your own body. Nobody can do this for you. You have to figure out what works, how to be able to sit so that you can remain focused for sustained periods, and eventually, of course, so that you can get up and move without moving from that, so that the practice can really be constant. The matter of the breath, very important as a focus, to bring the breath together all into one. And of course, the most delicate, the difficult part. The body, that can take some time. The breath, if you're not used to it, that can take some time. But the mind, that's the real humdinger. That's the real difficult part. How to let the mind truly be settled. But if the body is settled and the breath is settled, it's much easier for the mind then to become settled. It can be helpful, for example, to have a koan if it's really alive and burning for you. Because if it's real, if it's alive, you can't focus on anything else. Without this being clear, well, nothing is clear. How can you wander off into thought if this is not clear? So a koan, when it is alive and burning for you, when it's a real koan, it can give you that focus, almost like a magnet. You see? It's not necessary, but it can serve as a kind of a magnet, pulling you in a very good way. Then discursive thoughts, wandering mind, that's not a problem. When this is not clear, you remember the quote from Bankei, If you lost your most precious rakusu, your baby Buddha bib, you would run around looking for it everywhere. You wouldn't have a second of rest until it was back in your hands again. And yet, if your mind wanders, you have to see what you're doing wrong and correct it. No one else can do that. Practicing properly, as it says in the Zazen manual, before long, the mind is like a shining jewel, like a gem. In Buddhism, they speak of the mani gem, the wish-fulfilling gem, like a diamond, a jewel, perfectly clear. It reflects everything flawlessly. When the mind is really like that, a shining jewel, finally, what do you do with it? What do you do with it? This can also serve as a kind of a koan. Once the mind really has become settled, perfectly clear and lucid all the way to the bottom, like a shining jewel. Now, what do you do with it? What do you do with it? To make it as clear as I can, the so-called process of Zen, let us turn to an early Zen mondo, or exchange, that's very important in the Zen tradition. Very simply, a monk who had already practiced quite a bit came to an early Chinese master. His name was Shito, or Sekito, pronunciation in Japanese, Sekito, one of the forefathers of the Soto school of Zen. He asked a rather formal question, kind of a set phrase. It's a way of a Buddhist asking for the master to teach them. And it goes like this. I have learned something, rather modest, you see. I have learned something of the vast Buddhist teachings and have also heard of this Zen teaching of directly pointing to the heart of the matter and seeing the true nature and awakening. I do not yet understand this. Master, would you kindly instruct me? You see, it's a kind of a set pattern. But at this time, the early Chinese Zen, 1300 years ago or so, this was a new teaching. It seemed quite different from traditional Buddhism. So it was a set phrase. This teaching of directly pointing to the heart of the matter, seeing the true nature and awakening. These are 2 lines from a 4-line poem attributed to Bodhidharma. So basically it's saying, okay, I understand something of Buddhism, but the Zen teaching I don't get yet. Could you please make it clear? Okay, very simply, the guy's asking, what the hell is Zen? What is this Zen thing? I don't get it. Can you relate to that? At that time, at that place, for that monk, the master in Japanese pronunciation, Sekito, he responded like this. This will not do. Any other will not do either. None of it will do. Now, what do you do? Oh, the monk didn't have a clue. And so the master Sekito said, your karmic affinity, your connection, your karmic affinity is not with me. Go to the great master Ba, or Ma, that is Matsu, Baso. This is one of the forefathers of the Rinzai school. So these were the 2 great masters at that time. Sekito, who became a forefather of the Soto Zen school, and Baso, or in Chinese Matsu, who was the forefather of the Rinzai school. Actually, they worked together. Good cop, bad cop, as we say. A monk would come to one of them, and if it worked, fine, they would stay at the monastery. If, as in this occasion, the karmic affinity, the connection was not right, Well, go see him. So Baso, Matsu would sometimes send people to Sekito, and Sekito would sometimes send people to. They worked together. So again, Sekito responded to the question very simply, what is this Zen thing? By saying, this will not do, any other will not do, none of it will do. Now, what do you do? Lost. So he says, okay, your karmic affinity is not with me. Go see Master Matsu. So, of course, the monk did as he was told. Perhaps he reported to the master, now Matsu or Baso, what happened with the former master, Sekito. I went and I asked him about the Zen teaching, and he said, this will not do, any other will not do, none of it will do. Now, what do you do? And I had no idea. So he told me to come here. Master, can you please teach me? So the second teacher, Baso in Japanese pronunciation, Baso, says, as for me, sometimes I raise my eyebrows and blink my eyes. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Okay, is it clear again? Sometimes I raise my eyebrows and blink my eyes, and sometimes I don't. Sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't. With that, the monk awakened. He had a great awakening. And he said, you know, when I was with Sekito, the former master, it was like a mosquito trying to bite an iron bull. I couldn't get my probe in anywhere. It's clear, the exchange, the two exchanges, it's clear? Do you have any questions? Something, a word is not understandable? I'm sorry, I don't speak German. Yes, go ahead.
Why did Sekito send this monk to Baso at all?
Because he couldn't understand what he had just said. He couldn't get it. He said, your karmic affinity, you understand karmic affinity? You know, we're not connecting here. Go see him. As simple as that.
Wouldn't that be exactly the right position for him to be, just not knowing?
It's not enough. To think you know and have some preposterous misunderstanding is no good, huh? But simply to be lost won't do either, will it? There's a point in the practice where often we feel completely lost. And this is very important, as I say, get good and stuck. But that in itself is not enough, is it? So that's why he sent him. Huh? And with that second exchange, he did awaken. The interesting thing, since you asked this question, if you read the commentaries on this very famous early Zen exchange, these are scholars, not Zen masters. The scholars often will say, Sekito, who said, this will not do, any other will not do, none will do. Now, what do you do? He wasn't so good. He failed. The monk didn't get it. But the great master Baso, the second one, who talked about blinking the eyes, and he was the great master, and so the monk was able to be awakened. This shows the greatness of the Rinzai Zen tradition and the weakness of the Soto Zen. Is a complete misunderstanding. Huh? You see, don't you? From your own experience, you can see without that first question throwing him into great doubt, it's very unlikely that the second statement by Baso would have resulted in his awakening. You see? It wasn't useless by any means. It wasn't useless by any means. You have to see how these two masters are working together. I say, good cop, bad cop. You know this idea? When someone has been arrested and the police are trying to find out what the truth is, one policeman will try to interrogate them, ask them questions. And if it's clear that this person is lying, what they do is that cop gets really angry. Just, tell me! No, I don't know anything. Then he leaves and the other cop comes in. Good cop. He has a really bad attitude, doesn't he? He really gets pissed. It bothers me too sometimes. And before you know it, he's telling the truth. So this is a kind of a psychological ploy that the police will use. We say good cop, bad cop. Well, I mean it with a bit of humor here. Sekito's the bad cop. Baso turned out to be the good cop. But of course, without one, you can't have the other. You see, they have to work together as one. This is the great working of the early Zen tradition. So is it clear why he sent him off?
It's like with Rinzai, Obaku, and...
Yes. It's a similar, many of you know, Rinzai of Rinzai Zen. He was told by the head monk to go ask about, well, very simply, the truth of Zen. And before he could finish asking the question, his master, Obaku, just hit him. He just struck him. 3 times, it says. That means many times. Too many times. So finally, he himself, Rinzai, despairs. And he says, my karmic affinity, a similar term. My karmic affinity is not here. I must have done something wrong. I will go. And then the head monk says, okay, but first meet with the master and say goodbye. Oh no, I hope he doesn't hit me again. But he goes, and then the master says, okay, but don't go anywhere except to Master Koan in Japanese. And then he does, and through that very interesting, also humorous exchange, he awakens. So yes, it's a very similar good monk, bad monk.
I have a question about
Yes.
this karmic affinity.
Yes.
Being a psychotherapist, the relationship is the most important issue in the treatment. But in Zen practice, you're kind of thrown back to your own experience. And as I understand it, you have to learn to trust yourself. So what is the relationship between teacher and student?
Well, very simply, different than in psychotherapy. In Zen, the disciple must become the master. There's no other way. That's all. And the master will do whatever he can to help the disciple do that, which means sometimes he becomes a brick wall, allowing no entrance. As, wait a minute,
Do we need this
as Sekito
personal-
did.
Yeah,
As Sekito did.
yeah.
Sometimes he completely opens up, which is what Baso did, you see? Sekito didn't give the monk any place to hold on to
Yeah.
because he needed no place to hold on to. But he couldn't get it yet, so he was sent to Baso. Now, by the way, Baso is famous for often striking monks or yelling at them or kicking them and knocking them over. He's actually considered the first of what are called the classic Zen masters, because he's the one who first started doing this. No more explanations, ha! Or yelling like that. So he and then later Rinzai. But this guy's before Rinzai, okay? So he was famous for that. But in this exchange, it's completely different. Probably my feeling is because he was told the previous exchange. When that monk came, he reported what had happened, you see? And that, in a sense, he got completely stuck. He had no idea. This will not do, any other will not do. None of it will do. Now what? What do you do? I had no idea. I see, okay. Ask me the same question. He asked the same question, and then you see how he's saying the same thing, The two masters are saying the exact same thing, but one in a negative way and one in a positive way. You see? So Baso just said, oh yeah, sometimes I blink my eyes and it'll work, sometimes it doesn't. But with that, he was able to awaken. So the whole point is, how to say it, for the master to get out of the way, so that the monk or the disciple, the student, can realize who he really is. That he doesn't need to be given a thing. Which is probably different than in psychotherapy. Huh? Not completely different though, is it? Huh? It depends on how deep the therapy goes, doesn't it? I would say they're not completely different, but that's another issue. Huh? We don't do therapy here, okay? I'm not a therapist. That's not my job. Huh? I just make you stand on your own from the very first. That's my karmic affinity, if you will. Do you want to say something else, Ulrika?
Yes.
Yes, please.
Last issue, but in both cases there is a relationship, isn't there?
You mean the case of Sekito and Baso in both of their statements?
To the disciple.
Yes. In a way, perhaps it's a bit idealized, romanticized in this story, but it's made, at least to look as if they knew exactly what to do. It looked like Sekito had failed, because the guy didn't awaken. But he didn't fail. He set him up. So that when he went to Baso, and he said what he said, he was able to finally realize it. That's why I'm saying the two are working together.
But my point is, I think what was the most important issue when I hear what you're saying is
Yes.
the deep longing of the monk for a true relationship to himself, but to the other person too.
Okay,
And
yeah.
that kind of, and there was a relief at the end when he felt understood somehow. Maybe.
What do you think he understood?
I think they had an experience from heart to heart.
No, it has nothing to do with heart to heart. This is
I mean,
nonsense.
I think he, not in a sentimental way,
Yes.
deeper down.
But it has nothing to do with a communication between
Oh,
them,
that's not what
right?
I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The whole point of what's called awakening is realizing it here. And that's why Baso said what he said. You see? Yeah, sometimes I do this, sometimes I don't. But it was completely positive. You know, sometimes I do it, sometimes I don't. It works, sometimes it doesn't. But with that, the monk was able to realize himself in the true sense. And then that statement that he said, when I was with the former master, it was like a mosquito trying to bite an iron bull. But you see how important that was. That was, huh? Yes. And again, this heart to heart, no, don't mistake that, huh? It has nothing to do with from one to another. Huh? What's called mind to mind or heart to heart transmission means from here, not from here to here. It's not ESP kind of a nonsense. It has nothing to do with that. If it's that, okay, but it's not Zen. It has nothing to do with Zen. Okay, so be careful. These kinds of statements are found in Zen. The transmission of mind with mind. But it doesn't mean the mind of the monk and the master. Be careful. Again, in psychotherapy, that would probably be understood differently. Huh? The mind of the therapist helping to unlock something. Yeah. But in Zen, if that goes on, it's not Zen. Again, savor the first statement of Sekito. It's very important. Why would he be so cold? He didn't give the monk anything, did he? Isn't that cold and unfeeling? Hmm?
I think no.
Well, it's true. I mean, you have to see the great compassion
Yes.
in doing that. Refusing to blind him by giving him something.
Yeah.
Because he had to realize it for himself. Yes. You know what often happens in these situations, if you read the Zen records, the monk is on the way to that second master and he sees something, hears something, smells something, or some old lady selling tea challenges him, and then he awakens. What about that? It's always there and available. It's always there and available. But as long as your mind is wandering, you don't see it. It's right here, fully manifest. Do you see it? Well, continue in your practice. Don't look for answers. Go into the question. That is you. You. That's all you need. You don't need somebody else's answer. Okay? Deepen the question that is you. There it is. There it is.